this moment. It's not, doesn't carry over to tomorrow. It's whatever you choose moment by moment. My point is that openness to the new awarenesses and the things that I need on my journey to become aware of so that I can apply it and have an even more enjoyable experience here can come at any time, anywhere from anyone. So I'm not trying to figure it out. I'm not trying to do the universe's work when it comes to how the synchronicities of life that are going to be really enjoyable and light bulb moments for me, how they're going to come. Because in truth, how many of us have ever figured out all the different ways? Like, I've had people share books with me that were some of the most impactful in my life, but I wasn't even ready for them when they shared with me. I had a friend leave a book at my house and go move to another state, and I wasn't ready for that book until 5 years later, and then I realized, oh, I have that book, because I was trying to help somebody else. So I did a Google search. I said, how can I remind someone that our natural state is well-being, our natural state is health, which is a great search, right now for anybody with what's going on. But this is years ago. And and then the excerpt that came out, I was like, wait a minute, this is from a book that I've had in my possession for 5 years, but I wasn't drawn to read it. Read it, and then a whole new world opened up for me. And so it can happen in so many different, and that's just one example of like synchronicities of how I'm sure, we all have tons if we think about it. So I don't really try to figure out I'm not sitting there trying to like rack my brain and figure out all the how. Like I would like to say the universe is so obvious. When an answer is like for us, like it's so obvious, it's not subtle. Like it just you'd be like, oh, okay, it's obvious that this is meant for me, and then you can apply it and you really enjoy it, and we don't have to doubt that or second guess it. Like we could just take the life experience, see what's there for us, and if we want to keep going in that direction, awesome. Or maybe that was just some life experience that we needed for our journey, and then we can keep going in another direction. So I love what you pointed out. I'm so open for awareness everywhere.
So I love all that. And maybe it's because I'm a little older. Maybe it's because I'm a little more feet on the ground. But I don't feel that. I feel like you've got your feet on the ground really well. But I want people to know that the promise is the promise. But that doesn't mean you don't go through the desert to get to the promised land. It doesn't mean that you don't go through the darknesses of the soul to get to the joy of the soul. You don't have to. But sometimes you walk out feeling, for me, I'm going to say what I do, okay? I walk out feeling on top of the world. I feel like I've sat in my meditation in the morning. I feel really good. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to encounter people that are negative. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to bump into people that are sad. It doesn't mean that I'm going to, but what it does mean is I'm going to be able to carry what Yogananda used to call your portable paradise with you. And when we carry our portable paradise with us, we've all seen it. There have been people that have come into rooms. I know so many of these people. They're not the most attractive. They're not the most fit. They're not the happiest. They don't look like, they're not the wealthiest. But they walk into a room and everybody wants to be around them. They just carry this aura of something that is so completely whole that everybody just wants to have a piece of it. And it marveled me at first because I thought, how's that possible? What do they have? Because it wasn't something external, it was something internal. So I just want to debunk for a moment this thought that if we're happy, we're going to attract only happy people. Because sometimes when you're really happy, our work is to work with the people that are unhappy. Sometimes when we're always happy, we don't allow ourselves the freedom to go into our pain, not to build a house there. But we got to clean the shit out of the bottom of the floor of the place, of the bottom of the cup, because we want the nectar to taste good. And that stuff is hard. Being empty. The reason why people don't want to be empty is because the whole world is so full of themselves and telling you how great they are. And we want to be okay. We want to be loved by our people. We want to be accepted by them. And so we think we have to be more than we are. I can't tell you how unimpressed I am when people start talking about their superpowers. Why? What's wrong with being ordinary? I ask people on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being what they hate and 10 being what they love, where would they place the word ordinary? Most people give me a 1 or a 2. In the same breath, I'll say to them now, same scale, 1 is what you don't want to be, 10 is what you love to be. Where do you place the word extraordinary? They go, oh my God, extraordinary. We want to be a 10, a 12, a 20. They go off the chart. So I say to them, this may be a strange coincidence of the English language, but humor me for a minute. If ordinary is something you don't want to be, why do you want to be extra of something you don't want to be? Why do you want more of what you don't want? Why do you hold this parameter up in front of you of who you think you have to be that you can never sustain? What's wrong with just being yourself? The most ordinary thing in the world is a sunrise. It's the most beautiful thing you could ever experience. The most ordinary thing in the world is seeing the buds come onto the trees in springtime. Couldn't be more beautiful to see the replenishment of life happen every springtime. The most ordinary thing is watching the trees change colors and fall, and lose all their leaves and be bare. It's beautiful. In nature, the mountain doesn't want to be the river, and the river doesn't long to be the mountain. They're just content being what they are. Where is this level in humanity that says we have to be better than we are? We have to be more than we are. What's wrong with just being ourselves? We've developed industries that help the ordinary be extraordinary. We teach people, we fix people, we guide people, we lead people. What if we didn't have to? What if all we needed to do to create extraordinary occurrences is bring extraordinaries together? When extraordinaries come together, they create extraordinary things. And we were never meant to live life alone. When you see a mosaic, all of the individual pieces are beautiful on their own, but they're far more exquisite when they're all come together. We were meant to work together. We're smarter together. We're bolder together. We make better decisions together. We innovate better together. We say as a saying growing up, united we stand, divided we fall. So why do we live in a divided world? Why would we keep separating out and saying only white people are good, or only black people are good, or only Muslims are good, or only Jews are good, or only Christians are good, or only these people are good, Democrats are good, or Republicans are good? Who the hell, who taught us this BS? It's all of us together when we come together that we give each other so much more vitality. We give each other so much more life. We give each other so much more resonance to bring in new creations. We've siloed ourselves in like-minded communities for so long that the gaps between my like-minded community and your like-minded community have gotten wider and deeper, and we don't even know how to talk to each other anymore. It's time to come out of our silos. It's time to find unity in diversity. It's time to build communities of like and unlike-minded people where we can come together and innovate and grow and learn and be together. Not by teaching, but just by holding each other in our presence. One piece of the mosaic doesn't teach another piece of the mosaic. But when they all come together, they create something beautiful. Nobody's teaching. It's just the sheer nature of what happens when we come together. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I want to thank you for clarifying something for me just now that now I get to share going forward from here, which this is a great example of what I said. Awareness can come from any direction, anytime, from anyone. And I'll share with you what I mean. When you describe, because a lot of times when I describe going out in the world, and you mentioned how you go out in the world when, on those days where you feel like you're on top of the world, I also meditate in the morning. So I purposely put myself in a frequency that I like to be in, that I like to live in. And I'm not like requiring myself to be like blissed out of my mind, like to start the day. I will meditate until I'm at peace though, for sure.
Right.
That's when my meditation ends. When I'm like, oh, I'm at peace, like I can start the day. So when people ask me how long I meditate, until I feel the energy and that I like to be in, and then I flow from there. And so when I leave the house, like I typically am in I mean, not always, I'm human too, but I like to leave the house in a really good mood. But what you just clarified for me, because I always will mention, like, you'll play with people that are on that frequency. What now I get to clarify even further is when we're in a frequency of, call it love or happy, we're in a good mood, like we're in this frequency, we're connected with the divine, with that energy. We don't see people as, we're not condemning or judging someone where they are. So I can interact with someone no matter where they are. And the best definition I've ever heard of compassion is being able to interact with people no matter where they are and not lose your connection, like still be able to maintain, being love, being the light. And then from there, you can interact with people and they can come, join you because they're now seeing your light and you can like pull them up to where you are. And like, again, you're not condemning or judging them if they're having a rough time or a difficult time. You have insights that you can share with them from that space, meeting them where they are. And I've seen this happen so many times in my life where people are like, my gosh, like I'll be with friends and like all of a sudden I start having a conversation with just a random human that if you're ever around me, you'll notice I do this a lot. Like if we could be waiting across the street and if I notice us both noticing something, like you're just my new best friend right next to me. We're just having a conversation. Just is what it is. Yeah. So I've had so many instances like this where, and people like ask me, I'll use another example. People say, do you ever like go, I'm a single guy, I'm happily single. I love interacting with, people that I'm attracted to physically and, their energy. But when I'm interacting, like people ask me, do you ever have like bad dates? And I'm like, well, no, because when I'm like going on a date with someone, I'm so excited to know who this person is and there's a physical attraction there. So I'm just expecting it to just be a really fun life experience. So you get an even heightened version of my energy because I'm like actually excited to like spend this time. Like it's just, so if we're going to be on a date, you're either going to play with me like in this excited, like get to know each other, like super curious, adventurous state, or else we're probably not going to want to play with each other. You might be like, you're too much for me, or I'm like, well, if you don't want to play here, then let's just call it a night. So I don't really have, like, I've had some experiences where it's like, that's been the reason that the night ended. But I would still say I appreciate the experience for what it was. I got to share some things with them. They got to share some things with me, some new life experience, and it was what it was. Doesn't mean I hung out with them for, days and days and days after that. So I love that you've clarified that because now I could give an additional sentence as far as just not noticing that. Yeah.
Let me lob something over. Okay, you can let the ball just go to the back fence. You don't have to hit it back. You don't have to.
I was a baseball player. I played baseball at San Diego State.
you can hit down the ballpark. Okay. I'm an empath, so I feel people all the time, and it used to really affect me because I would walk into a room, and I would feel the energy of the room. And oftentimes I would feel it trying to pull me down because I was someplace that wasn't in that place. I tried to live my life in a very elevated place. But I realized as an empath, I had the ability also not only to receive energy, but to receive energy from above and bring energy through. It's the giving and the receiving of that energy. It's receiving energy in the room and just working with it and holding it and loving it and not changing it, but just sort of saying, when you and me come together, we create us. And what is that us going to be? Is that us going to be a devolution of us, or is that going to be an evolution of us? Can we have the power to walk into a room where people are feeling sad and make the whole room happy? Do we have the ability? Do we believe? Yeah, the answer is yes, by the way. Spoiler at the end. Yes, we can. Okay. But do we believe we have the ability to, not even with our words, like, I'm going to give you a secret. We're having a great conversation, but that isn't where I'm communicating with you on. I'm using my words to occupy your mind and the mind of your listeners, so that their mind is occupied and doesn't get scared. For those of people who are sensitive, what they'll feel is they'll feel our hearts connecting, they'll feel our souls connecting, because the mind is not engaged in its fear process, saying, who's this old fat guy who looks like Santa Claus? And what's he trying to do to us here, right? What is he trying to do? Because the mind is the place where fear lives. The heart is the place where love lives. So if we can talk succinctly enough, if we can talk eloquently enough, if we can tell stories that allow the mind to get enraptured with what it is we're saying, what happens is we open up the pathways from heart and soul. That our silence says so much more than our words could ever say. And the true transformation of spirit comes when we don't speak it, but our words occupy the mind so the mind doesn't interfere, and we just share. We come together as brothers and sisters, people, humans, spiritual beings in human bodies. We come together and we allow the energy of our heart and soul to touch, unobstructed. And so some people say, well, what are you doing? Voodoo? Are you doing magic on us? Are you trying to hypnotize it? No, none of that. All we're doing is occupying, is giving the mind something to, it's like a dog. If you give the dog a bone and he likes to chew on the bone, he won't chew on his balls. You just give the dog a bone to chew on. You give the mind a bone to chew on. So this heart and soul have unobstructed ability to relate to the people that are around there. And when we walk into a room, it isn't the words we say. It isn't anything. It's the energy that we bring into that room. You know this because I can feel it. I feel it from the first moment we started. You might think it's your words. You might think it's your charisma. You might think it's because you're cute and you know the things to say, right? But it's really an energy that you bring with you that's so positive and so good that it's just natural. And for people who get caught in, what's going on here, just give them something to chew on. Give the mind something to engage in. Use your words to allow them to do that, but do the work of the soul. Do the work of the heart. Do the work where hearts connect, because words don't create transformation. Words create inspiration. And inspiration comes and goes. You're inspired for a little while and then you lose it. Transformation is forever. Transformation happens when you don't even know who you are anymore. To get to that place where people actually transform, it means we have to walk them through the fear of becoming empty. I have a stepson. He's a little lost right now. Part of what he needs, in some ways, and I'm not a big military guy, I hate to say it, because military is all, we're all great with military. But I grew up in the 60s when military wasn't in the best possible situations. In some ways, it would be great for him to go to some place like the military or to a wilderness program where they literally just strip you down and then rebuild you up. Because who we are, every single one of us, you, me, every single one of us listening, if we were stripped down and rebuilt as who we actually are rather than who we think we are, we would be 1,000 times more powerful. We would be 1,000 times more loving. We would be 1,000 times more great. Because as great as we think we are, as much as we think we're doing, we haven't even seen. It's just the shadow of the light that's actually shining. We haven't even seen the light. As much as we believe it, and I know you've seen the light. I'm not saying you haven't seen the light. You're a bright, brilliant man. I can feel it. I feel that way about me too. But I'm saying everything that I've seen is just a reflection of what actually is. And when we allow ourselves to be empty, and being empty is so scary for most people. Being vulnerable is so scary because we think vulnerability is weakness. Vulnerability is the utmost strength. To be able to walk in open and say, use me. I surrender to you. I allow you to take me where you want me to go. And to never fight that. That's the courage of warriors.
You definitely teed me up just now, Danny. I love everything that you said. Rewind when this comes out. Rewind and listen to what Danny just said again. That'll be very valuable too. If you space that weren't present, I highly recommend this whole episode just to be present to it, because there's just like what you said. The words weren't. It wasn't about the words. It's the energy that is being shared, and I don't think at all when it comes to these things. I'm just like connected. And I mentioned this a few times. I'm just connected with the energy, and I'm fascinated by where it can go. And the words that come out are just a reflection from that awesome frequency that it's going to. This at one point, Danny, like I want to share, and you guys have heard me share this before if you guys have been listening to this podcast for a while. But at one point, what I would consider right now to be my greatest strength that I'm most appreciative of really appreciating the present moment and just wanting to see how much life I could live in the present moment. How much fun it could be, how much I could connect with another human being if I'm spending time with another human being. Like I only come into these podcasts thinking how much fun can we have together? Like what can we create? How can we empower the audience? And I'm just fascinated like a little kid, because I just know that it's a conversation that has never happened before and won't happen exactly like this ever again. And what will come out of it is just going to be awesome. It's going to be powerful. And that's how it always is. And at one point in my life, like this was my greatest weakness, because like I mentioned, I was a baseball player. I thought I was going to play pro from the time I was 2 until the time I was 21. It wasn't just like a pipe dream. Like I was always accelerated for my age. And then I had an injury at San Diego State in college. Couldn't throw anymore. And that was kind of the beginning of the end. So it was a really dark time for me, like really ups and downs. Like I've always been a pretty like wanting to be happy person. But when you're thinking so much about, well, now how am I going to be successful? I thought I was going to do this for my whole life. And so from 21 to 25, it was a lot of time where it was just dark times, like depressing times, and had to attract the synchronicity. Not had to, but fortunately attract the synchronicity in the form of Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, which was left in a house that I was living in with 5 roommates in LA. And there were 4 spiritual books in the corner of the garage, which made me respect all the books because I had heard of a few of them. And I was like, Power of Now, that's an interesting topic. And so read that and was like, whoa. So that started the journey. It wasn't just like all like fairy tale, like roses and like rainbows from there. But it's become a practice since then. It's never gone out of my awareness. And this is a decade ago. And so if we practice anything for a decade, we'll get better and better and better at it. And now, a decade later, it matters so much to me to not take this moment for granted. I think a lot of times as human beings, we can easily take the moment for granted. We think, we could be in a bad mood all day today, we'll be happy again tomorrow. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do that. I'm just saying if today were our last, we would be worried about whatever we're worried about right now. It's probably unlikely. We'd probably be spending time with people we love, focusing on doing something we love, just appreciating, what we have. So whenever anybody sees me, like I'm no special breed of human. All of us have the same, again, non-physical energy flowing just in different physical expressions. So when you see me out in nature and I'm just like, I'm talking about something, all of a sudden I'm appreciating a tree or a butterfly flying by or anything, just because I'm really enjoying the moment. And I'm doing things purposely to allow my frequency to rise. Like I know now how the energy works and how it's always flowing and it's always moving. So preferably for me, I just prefer it to move where I feel better and better and better versus where it feels worse and worse and worse, because it could do that also.
So pause for me if you would.
Yep.
Can I push you a little bit?
I'm open for everything. I mean, say anything that you're inspired to share. You already shared awesome stuff.
If you don't like trash can anything that I'm saying.
I love anytime anyone is inspired to share anything with me, please.
Okay. I would really invite you to sit with that last statement you made, because it sounds so right. That we all want to be inspired to be to those places where it's all good. But what it has a possibility of sharing with people that I don't know you really want to share is this sense that sitting in the uncomfortable. What I find is people are uncomfortable in the uncomfortable, and they leave it all too soon. Can I share with you a very personal story?
I'm going to make you clarify what you just said, but keep going. Yes, if your story will probably help clarify.
I hope it will. I hope it will. And if it doesn't, make me come back to it. Okay?
I always We'll get the clarity for sure now.
I have the honor of having a 30-year-old developmentally delayed daughter. But it wasn't always an honor. She doesn't speak like you and I speak. And so often what would happen is she would try and say something and nobody would understand her. Because I've been with her longer and throughout her whole life, I tend to understand more than most people do. But often I wouldn't understand her. And when I did understand her, she would start to yell. And when she yelled, sometimes to her credit, she said words slightly differently, and I got it. And I thought, oh, that's great. I understand you now. That's fabulous. So when you raise your voice, you change your inflection, and I can hear you. But most of the time, not. Most of the time, she was now just screaming a message that I couldn't understand when she was talking, because it wasn't the volume; it was the clarity in which she pronunciates things. When she would scream and I didn't understand her, she would throw a tantrum. And that could have been in the middle of a conversation with people. It could be around the dinner table. It could be while we're walking in a mall. It could be while we're driving in a car. It could be anywhere. It could be when we're sitting home alone. It could be when I'm giving her a bath. She could just go crazy and just be outraged. And when that didn't work, she would attack. She would come at me and she would either try and bite me or rip my shirt. And this went on for a long time, though. Sometimes it would happen as many as 5 to 15 times a day. And it went on almost, I wouldn't say every day, but a lot of days, for about 10 or 15 years. I always thought I'm a smart guy. I always thought I could find a solution to something. I always thought, like, what should I do? Finally, when every hair in my head and beard had turned gray and was no longer black, I looked at her and I said, Elisa, you know I love you so much. You know what you say is so important to me. You know how hard I try and understand you. But I just can't understand your words. Can you say it without using your words in another way? And from the midst of her rage, she smiled. And she said, I am Daddy, perfect English. I said, what do you mean you are Daddy? What are you doing? And she took her finger and she put it to the side of her head. And I said, you little son of a gun, have you been putting thoughts in my head? I thought you were doing that, but I just didn't trust it. I mean, who would believe that a developmentally delayed kid who can't speak is putting thoughts in my head and I'm hearing them as clear as a conversation? I didn't trust it. I'm so sorry. And she started laughing and we started laughing. And it was that contagious laugh where she stopped and I continued and she continued because I continued. And it felt like it went on for months. It probably went on for 5 minutes, which is a long time to laugh from the midst of rage. You know, from that moment on, she's never raised her voice, she's never tantrumed, and she's never attacked. But here's the even more important thing, Noel. When we don't listen to what we're being told, every single human being does the same thing. When they don't feel listened to, they scream. When they scream and they don't feel listened to, they create chaos. When they create chaos and they don't feel listened to, they try and destroy. When we don't listen to our own system, when we just Pollyannish over it, not saying that's what you do, but I'm just saying is when we just don't spend the time to listen to what our pain is saying to us, because we always run to be good, that pain has no option but to tell us what it needs. It'll say it louder. It'll disrupt us. It'll start to destroy something. And so what I want to invite you to do is disrupt your thought process a little. If it doesn't feel right, throw it in the trash. Who am I? I know you all have about 18 seconds. But it's just a feeling. My gift is that I hear people's souls. My senses doesn't mean I'm right. Just an old fat guy in California. My sense is that there's something inside of you that wants to speak to you. But your race to positivity is keeping you from hearing what it actually wants to say. And if you would listen, if you would sit with it, your power would increase hundredfold. Because you're working in cooperation with the passion and the life force that is caught up there, that little eddy. And you would be channeling it by listening to what it wants you to do. When I wrote the mosaic, I thought it would take 3 months. I had written a book for a hotel to brand the hotel and tell their story. It took me 6 weeks. This was my story. I could easily tell it in 3 months. 2.5 years later, I sat with the damn book, and I was so frustrated. And I said, what the heck is going on here? Talk to me. And the characters, inanimate objects, characters that I created, based on characters that I knew from a previous time in my life, but still I created them on a page, appeared to me like, you're here right now. Like, are you real? I think so. They were as real as this conversation. It wasn't like I was channeling something or doing something weird. They were real, sitting right in front of me. They said, we don't want to say what you're telling us to say. We want you to listen to what we're saying. When I listened to what they said and I wrote what they said, the book was done in 6 weeks. Now when I pick the book up, I find things in it that I couldn't even imagine that I could have ever written. Because it wasn't my consciousness that wrote it, it was theirs. It helps me so much, and I don't know if it will help anybody else. People like it, people have nice comments on it, but it doesn't matter because they wrote that book for me. That was my transformation. That was my ability to stop, to not just race from beginning to end, but to stay in that middle space where things are ugly, where things aren't so good, where things are beautiful, where all the experiences of life happen. My invitation to you, my lob for you to knock out of the park, is what would happen if you slowed it down a little? What would happen if you didn't have to be Mr. Good guy all the time? What would happen if you didn't have to always be the smile that encourages other people to smile? But that you allowed yourself to go through that pain, that voice, that yell, that scream, that enragement, that thing that wants to destroy. In my book, he's called the beast. And what most of us do is we lock him in a closet. But the beast isn't happy in the closet. And it's only a matter of time until he'll break out because we're embarrassed by him, we're ashamed. We're scared to death of what he would do if we came out. But that beast is also all of our passion. That beast is also the thing that gives diversity to the love that we feel, that makes our love more real than you could ever imagine. That beast is what makes our love passionate love. Because it's full of emotion, it's full of embarrassment, it's full of all the shame, it's full of all the glory. Locked in a closet, we never get to feel
it. I'm so happy that so I want to thank you for sharing anything that because I've only had a few guests come on and share things where it's like I'm going to push you a little bit, Noah. I love it. It's my favorite part of life, and here's why. The biggest discoveries that I've made in my life have come from me asking the universe to show me blind spots, things that right now I can't see. The only reason that you guys see what you see as far as me enjoying life the way I enjoy it is because of becoming aware of things that I couldn't see, blind spots, like being critical of myself or others after my journey in sports didn't work and like depressing times and all the stuff that I described. And then once being aware of those, then now it's to the light. Now I have a choice, which is the only reason I do what I do is to help people have the conscious awareness so they can have a choice to live their life however they choose. So I will ask that question now in meditation to show me anything else that maybe, because I haven't asked that question in a while. It's been several years since I've asked to see anything that might be a blind spot. So now I have a curiosity though, so thank you for planting that seed.
May I make a suggestion to you?
Yeah, and then I'm going to share something I'm really inspired to share. Go.
Okay, let me make a suggestion to you. Do it with somebody else because your mind is too brilliant. You know all your pathways. You know all the ways to make yourself believe that you're actually accomplishing what you want to accomplish, but in essence what you're doing is you're running around the side of the hole you need to go into and never going. You're going deeper, but you're not going into the bottom of it. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. If I'm wrong, throw it away. But I would literally find someone you trust and hire them to not let you get up, just like you do in your meditation, until you encounter your beast, until you look at your beast, until you stop feeling like you're living your life to help the rest of the world. Because listen to me, brother, I'm an old man. The more you help yourself, the more the rest of the world grows. We're all connected. There is no difference. You don't have to help anybody. You don't have to change anybody. This right here is all we need to change. Because as this changes, you change, they change, everything changes, because we're all part of the same thing. The more we allow ourselves to be in that place of real emptiness, of real pain. You know it because you went from 21 to 25. You know what that's like. Nobody wants to go back to it. It's so dark. It's so painful. It's so... I say to you, let me take your hand and walk you there. Because there's still stuff there. We got to get it out. If there is, great. Let's talk more. If there's not, say that old fuck, pardon my language, that old guy didn't have any idea what was going on. Well, doesn't have any idea what's going on. And I'm not trying to take you off your place. You have amazing capacity to be with people and to show a light to people that they haven't seen. My concern is your desire to help them is too strong. They don't need your help.
I'm gonna pause you now, Dan, because this is important. And I mentioned this earlier in this episode. I only ask questions first for me. I'm very selfish. I care about my fun and my fulfillment more than anything, and I have no problem sharing that. The second question I ask is for humanity. But for me, the reason I'm asking the question is because it's something that fascinates me. And I tell people I have one addiction in this life. That's it. It's how amazing my frequency can be in this moment, and that's it. And I'm fortunate enough to where, because I start paying attention to it, and I've touched frequencies. We have words like bliss, euphoria, ecstasy, nirvana, and what I know about energy is we can feel even better than that. And I know how to reach those. And it's my firm belief that when we get to the end of our lives, if we do have a chance to think back on moments, we won't really think about the awesome conversation that we had one day at one time at this one place. Like, maybe, but most likely we're going to think about the really energetically charged moments. It could be painful moments too if we choose to go there, or the really blissful, like euphoric, like just awesome moments. And I know how to get there. So that's what I'm just excited for the universe to bring me more of those. And the reason I do everything that I do is so that I can have more of those moments, like the really highly energetically charged, like blissful moments. And so when you guys see me doing anything where my vibration is going up, including conversations like these, it's because of the more I let my vibration go up, the more I attract frequencies, the more I attract things that are experiences on those levels. But I am really interested in what you're saying a lot, because there's multiple people that have shared similar things, and once the universe starts showing me multiple people showing me similar things, I have had no interest in like seeking out what you call the beast. At the same time, I'm curious. There's a curiosity there. So it'll start with me in meditation. It might go from there to reaching out to some humans that I would trust to experience. You're a human that I trust now, Danny. I like your.
I appreciate that. I like your. Here for you. Anyway, I'm here for you. But I love when a conversation comes full circle. And let me just tie it up for us with a pretty big bow. Okay. Remember the way we started our conversation. There is no separation. There is no difference. So tell me now, are you old enough to remember overhead projectors?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have an overhead projector, okay? And we have that statement of there is no difference. It's a big myth that the world is separate, that we're separate, that things are different than each other. And now take this last statement you had. I try and stay in a high vibration, and I try and not go into the beast. I try and not go to those places where I go into a lower vibration. But what if everything's the same? How do those two sheets overlap? And so what happens when our reality comes face to face with our belief system? These are the places where just a slight misalignment of what we believe and what we know creates a life that is just beautiful, but slightly not in alignment with the full power of our state. I went with my developmentally delayed daughter to a place in Boston called the Option Institute outside of Boston. And I'm a sucker for a woman crying. If a woman cries, I give her whatever she wants, especially my daughter. So I would ask for my daughter to do things on her own, and she would start crying, and I would immediately do everything for her. And if she was smart enough to understand, all she had to do was shed a tear. So they watched me do that, and they said, okay, well, something's got to change. They said, we want you to record her crying for 45 minutes, for 15 minutes. We want you to record your favorite piece of music that you love listening to more than any piece of music for 15 minutes. And then we want you to record 15 minutes of silence. When your happiness and when your sadness and when your mood doesn't change between each one of those 3 15-minute periods, you'll know she has no influence over you when she cries. You'll know that you operate from the same place, crying, bliss, quiet. To me, that was the best example I had of how similar everything is. Because as soon as I could act from the place that the most beautiful sound I could ever hear was the sound of my daughter crying, because it was the same as the most beautiful music I ever heard, which is the same as the most beautiful silence I ever experienced. It lost its power to make me lose my power. What I'm asking you is most people wouldn't. I'm peculiar. I see a table very neatly arranged, and I say, really? Let's turn this mofo over. And I'll help you pick up all the pieces, but I want you to make sure that the pieces you pick up you want on your table. Because it feels like there's some pieces on your table that don't belong there. And you have the option. I'll pick them all up with you, set them back in exactly the same place, if that's what you want. But what a beautiful option, now that they're on the floor, to just say, no, I don't want this anymore, and put it in, give it to the trash man. And then I'm just taking it away. I offer you that opportunity, my friend. Maybe all the pieces will come back.
It's great to know for all of us that we're always evolving and expanding. So out of everybody on the planet, I'm definitely not one that's going to like close off to allowing myself to evolve. So there's something there. I'm excited actually to have this conversation. I'm excited to. I'll chat with you a little bit more after we finish this on a couple of things. I'm curious to pick your brain because when you mentioned the story of the crying versus the silence versus the piece of music, I'm curious. I mean, just a question that I would have is: was it the story that you had about the crying and the music, as far as this makes me sad and this makes me happy, and this losing that, letting that dissolve to where it was just sound or silence? Like it wasn't like the story that you were sharing it. Like that would be that's my curiosity when it comes to that.
I'll answer very quickly. Everything is neutral. The only thing that changes is the meaning we give to the sound. That crying is a neutral sound. I assigned a meaning to it, that she's hurt and in pain and she wants something and I can help her, so let me help her. The beautiful music, I attributed a thing that how beautiful this sound is. And this is if I could occupy my time all the time just listening to this beautiful sound, I would always listen to this music. And the silence was one that I chose to listen to, even over the most beautiful music. I love the sound of silence. And I gave it a meaning that was far greater. But when I gave the same meaning to that crying, that I gave to that silence, that I gave to that beautiful piece of music, they were all neutral events. It was me that was giving the meaning to them. And when I changed, the whole Wayne Dyer says a beautiful thing. He says, when you change the way you look at the world you look at changes. Simple, beautiful. Another friend of mine, before I was about to go on this trip, she said, go with this one thing in mind. Know that everything you see is a reflection of you talking to you about you. And then you'll be able to take your trip in true essence. When you're talking to the KKK, know that it's you talking to you about you. When you're talking to the white supremacists, know it's you talking to you about you. When you're talking to the beautiful peace people, know that it's you talking to you about you. When you're talking to the Black Lives Matter people, know that it's you talking to you about you. When you're talking to the Republicans that are yelling at the Democrats, know that it's you talking to you about you. When you're talking to the beautiful old woman who's recounting her life and telling you all the joys and pains, know that it's you talking to you about you. Every single thing is just us talking to us about us. And when we see that, it has nothing to do with my daughter crying. It has nothing to do with a beautiful piece of music. It has nothing to do with the silence. All of it is the same. It has nothing to do with a low energy and a high energy. It has nothing to do with a good high vibration and changing ourselves to become this beautiful person. There is no other thing but a beautiful person. It's just the meaning we give to what a beautiful person is. Why isn't a beautiful person the guy I sat on the street corner with? And got to know him, a homeless guy. And I sat with him and I said, Corey, if you could tell one thing to the world that they would listen to, what would you say? And he said, I'd invite people to spend 10 minutes and just ask another person they don't know how they're doing. I said, Corey, of all the things you could ask for, why that? Like, you could ask for homeless people to have a shelter. You could ask for people to not go hungry. Why that one thing? And he said, Danny, about 2.5 weeks ago, my life had gotten to the bottom of the bottom of the barrel. People walk by and they punch me, they kick me, they beat me up, they spit on me. I can feel their hatred of me as they walk by. Because I'm just sitting here with no money and no home. And I thought, my life is meaningless. Why would I stay here any longer? I thought that evening I was going to walk around the back of this block and I was just going to take my life. And not 2 minutes after I had that thought, a man put his hand on my shoulder and he said, how you doing, brother? And I started crying, tears pouring down my eyes, saying, not so well. And the man took the time to sit down next to me. And he said, tell me about it. And I told him about the struggles and the things that I was thinking and how meaningless my life was. And he sat with me and he listened. You know, the whole thing took about 10 minutes. But that night I couldn't go and kill myself because someone cared enough about me to actually spend 10 minutes of their time with me and listen to what I was feeling and validate me and acknowledge me and accept me and understand. And he said, that man has no idea that I'm alive today because he did that. Well, Corey, the man who told me that story, has no idea that he is the driving force behind me going around the world to sit with people and just ask them how they're doing and film them so that every voice can get heard. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of those who feel they have a voice, the voice of every single human being that I can come in contact with. Corey has no idea he influenced me like that. We have no idea what we give when we don't even know we're giving anything.
I love that, brother. So less than 24 hours ago, I do this all the time. Open invitation for anybody out there, but people I don't ask for it, but people, anytime anybody like messages me on Instagram with anything and they're like reaching out because they're like in pain, not even thinking that I'll maybe reply. Like, not only do I reply, and not only do I reply quickly, I reply back with a voice note, and I'm just and I just flow out whatever wants to come out, just speaking to them, just out of a place of just love and just compassion. So I love that. This is something that I'll do ongoing forever. And when you mentioned that before we started recording, that was what you were going to do, that's awesome, because people, the more that we could show people how connected that we all are, because we like to use the term "we're all connected, we're all one."
Yeah.
But do we really understand what that means? I like to help people understand that, and just by the example first. The best way we can help anybody is by our example, and when you do that documentary, you'll be showing people that example, which is awesome. So it's been
when 19 turns into 20, we'll sit together in some street on Florida, and we'll just engage people in conversations. I would love that.
You said when what turns to what?
When COVID-19 turns into 20. When it passes, when 19 turns into 20, we'll find a way to sit together on some street in Florida.
I was like, did Danny forget what year we're in? I put the year in my. I was like, 19. We already in 20. Danny. I got you.
I call COVID-19 19. It's just my charming little nickname for it.
For sure. Well, I love this. I appreciate you coming on. Anything you want to share with the audience that you want them to definitely get Danny's book. I'm going to get Danny's book, Mosaic. When I read the description of it just a little bit ago, and I'm excited to connect more with the energy that you're putting out there, brother, because I enjoy receiving it, and your willingness to not only share with the audience but share with me is greatly appreciated, and it just highlights what I share, just being able to be open for awareness to come from any direction. That's probably my favorite part about myself, just because I'm just always going to evolve. None of us will know all the truths of the universe in this one lifetime. Don't need to, and we won't. So that allows me to stay open and see where life wants to evolve to. I appreciate it.
I just want to say what an honor it's been to get to know you a little bit. What an honor it is to just sit face to face via screen, but still face to face, and sort of feel you and enjoy you. And thank you so much for having me on here. If there's one thing that I would love to share with people, it's take some time to reintroduce yourself to yourself. Get to know yourself. You will start the most exquisite journey you could ever imagine. And the more you get to know how you operate, who you are, all your pains, all your sorrows, all your joys, all your pleasures, all the places you hide, all the places you flourish, all the places you grow, unlock all the doors. And just show up as you are. Just beautifully, magnificently, peacefully, ragefully as you are. And allow the world to experience the experience of you. Allow yourself that experience. We hide so much of ourselves thinking we won't be accepted, we won't be liked, we won't be approved of, we won't be thought. Come out. You'll be surprised. I'm an old man. And the more vulnerable I've become, the more beautiful people have stood with me and said, I'll help you. I'll do this for you. I can do that. You look like you could use a hand. Can I help you? And I would say, yeah. Normally I would say, no, I can handle it. But I would love that. Thank you. And it's not only about giving all the time. It's about being generous enough to allow people to give to us. That happens when we're open, when our silos melt, and we're not connecting silo to silo, but we're connecting person to person. Intimacy. How beautiful. Let's have intimate moments where you see me and I see you, and we support each other and hold each other up. Find those people that when you fall will lay down beside you until you're ready to get up. And if you need help getting up, they'll help you. And if you don't, they'll let you stand up on your own. It's a beautiful world we live in. Let's experience it.
I love it. Rewind and listen to what Danny said again, you guys. So much fun. This is awesome. I really appreciate you for coming on and sharing your light. And you guys share this episode. It will definitely be valuable for people. They'll definitely receive something from it, if not many things. And I just love that all the different awarenesses that were shared in this episode. And thank you guys out there that have been reviewing and rating and subscribing to the podcast. It's making it easier for people to find. And there's no rule on iTunes that says you can only leave one review. So feel free if you're inspired to say how awesome this Danny guy is, and I'll make sure he's aware of that compliment as well. So appreciate you guys out there. Definitely sending you guys tons of love, and we're all connected. We're all in this together, and just happy to be sharing this planet with all 7.7 billion of you out there, or maybe more now. And we'll talk to you guys soon on another episode. Have a beautiful day whenever you hear this. Awesome. So much fun, brother. I appreciate you. That was fun. I'm gonna stop the stream, and then I'm gonna share a couple things with you. See you live, people.